What's up, guys? Welcome back to Let's Play Bioshock Infinite! So, we are taking refuge in these people's homes here, and they realize what's going on already. They know that there's somebody causing a ruckus, and they're gonna create a diversion for us so we can get out of here. Assuming you don't open fire on them by accident. Yeah, they're gonna say, you know, go, because the police are gonna come in here any minute now and be on your tail, so get away from the front door as fast as possible there, and if you sneak out the back here, there'll be guys patrolling out here, so you'll be able to kind of fight them from behind, and usually it works out pretty well. Didn't work out very well this time around, but I make it work, so whatever. One thing I wanted to touch on definitely with this game is the other Bioshocks being that they were derivative of the formula from System Shock 2. You had an open-ended level in which only certain encounters were scripted and a lot of enemy spawns were random. And such was the case in the previous two Bioshock games. In this game, this is not the case. Almost every encounter is scripted, but occasionally you will, if you backtrack through an area, you will get random spawns that will occur. So this is strictly speaking a linear game with, see, I died there. Like I said, this is, strictly speaking, a linear game, but with a few branching paths here and there and the ability to backtrack through areas to get optional objectives and whatnot. It's kind of, it's not really, you know, point A and then it's completely open. It's point A to point B, and then you backtrack from B to A to do your optional objective, and you get random spawns along the way. Is kind of how it works. But honestly, just because, as I mentioned before, the fast pace of the action for the combat, I feel like it works in this game's favor. This is, I mean, it's just not the same game as the previous Bioshock games, and I really feel like they had to come to a compromise about that when redesigning this game all that many times, because they really couldn't have a game that played like the previous two Bioshock games and tell the story they wanted to tell. And I don't know if it was, you know, trying to pander to the shooter demographic with a more action-oriented game. But if you compare it to other games that are similar to itself, like if you compare it to, you know, other shooters that have, you know, like a secondary power type of abilities, you know, supernatural powers, and it holds up really well. It just, you kind of have to stop comparing it to the previous Bioshock games in a lot of ways. Anyway, there's going to be another fireman comes out right here. I'm totally unprepared to fight this guy right now. Like I said, the penalty for dying in 1999 mode is you lose $100, and if you don't have any money to pay for your respawn, then you get a game over and you have to reload your checkpoint. Which is a much more significant penalty for death than in the previous games in the series. Also, I feel like, just in general, this game is a better penalty for death than in the previous games, because in the previous games, enemies, like, you could through a war of attrition wail on a Big Daddy with a wrench over and over again and eventually win out. In this game, though, it's like every enemy is healed when you have to respawn as well, so it basically just resets the encounter. Problem is, you still have wasted your ammo and your salts and whatnot, so you may not have half the abilities you did before. I'm actually skipping that fireman. I just possessed that turret there. I'm going to progress real quick, because I'm going to have to backtrack through here anyway, and there's a few things I want to get first. But yeah, I feel like it's much more, they tried to still keep it true to formula, keep it true to form with the series standards, but at the same time, you know, make it more appropriate for this game's pace and more challenging. I'm actually going to skip that room over there because there's some guys in there. There's a few things, there's a voxophone or two in there I want to get later, but I want to kind of stir the hive a little bit first of all. There's a new enemy type down here called a Zealot, and I'm going to throw a charged Devil's Kiss fireball in there and stir them up real quick. I believe I killed most of the regular enemies in that group. There's a few of them here. They all look like, you know, that racist group with their pointy hats and everything. I don't know what their deal is. They probably are a type of group like that because they're a cult of some kind that worships ravens. And there's a voxophone that goes into detail about them. I'm not sure if it's here or later on. No, I think it's here actually. But the actual Zealot enemy, we'll get to be fighting him pretty soon. He flew off. These guys still pretty basic, nothing the pistol can't handle. even without the power increase from the Day 1 DLC or the Season Pass, whatever. We're about to get pretty much every single weapon in the game has an achievement going along with it for a quantity of kills. Some of them are easy to get, some of them are not. Some of them require to get only 25 kills, some of them 50, some of them are 125. Like the machine gun is 125. I don't know when you would ever find the time to kill 125 enemies with a machine gun in this game, considering how the machine gun is just not all that good. I guess if you held onto it the entire game, you might get it. But I'm just not planning to do that at all. I'm gonna drop the machine gun as soon as I get the chance. So there's another infusion here. I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to be putting 2 infusions towards shield, and then 1 to health, 1 to salts, and then doing 1 alternating between the 3. So after I've put 2 into shield and 1 into everything else, I'm going to put 1 into each one, alternating between the 3. So 1 into shields, 1 into health, 1 into salts, 1 into shields, and just cycle back and forth like that. So you'll see me do that.
You shall find out. No animal is born free, except the white man. And it is our burden to care for the rest of creation.
Alright, so now that I found that key there, I want to backtrack to that house we went into earlier that had that locked chest. And I want to get whatever is inside there now that I have this. And like I said, this is the backtracking that you do for these optional objectives. And right now, I really don't have the firepower to destroy that turret, so I'm just going to possess it and walk past it, and maybe if there's any other enemies in this encounter, he will distract them. But this seems pretty basic for an optional objective, and it is. I mean, it really kind of feels forced, like these could have been stripped out of the game altogether. But then you get into some of the ones later in the game, and it's like, alright, well, I can see the use for that, so... I wasn't sure how I felt about this the first time I played the game, but I really warmed up to it as I continued on with my test runs. Yeah, that possession aid this early in the game is really good for possessing regular enemies, because not only do you get guaranteed instant kill on them, but they, it's one less gun shooting at you, and you're drawing aggro away from the enemies towards the guy that you possess, so it's just really good at this early in the game, especially when we don't have a lot of salts and we can just dump all of our salts into that one possession. Alright, so there's an infusion in the chest. I went ahead and put that second one into shields, and then whenever we get another one, I'll put it into health, and then into salts, and then start alternating. Alright, now to backtrack again to where we were in the church there. Not sure if you guys are aware of this, but there's a fireman in your house. He's kind of setting the place on fire just a little bit. Yeah, I had a very hard time avoiding that guy's suicide attack the first time through the game, but I've managed to get it down. I mean, if you can shoot him in time when he is attempting it, then you'll be able to stop him. Enemies that are similar to the previous Bioshock games, enemies whose corpses are burned or something like that, or corpses get deleted, they leave behind a lockbox like that with all their loot in it. Yeah, I'm not used to having this little ammo for the machine gun. There are rarely, very rare few occurrences in this game. I think this is one of them, where if you find a food product that you can eat to increase your health, you can find one that's poisoned and or just rotten, essentially, and if you eat it, it'll actually damage you instead of increase your health. And we accidentally picked up one of those when we first got into combat, first picked up our pistol.
And when the Angel Columbia gave unto the founders the tools to build a new Eden, they did so without hesitation. For 85 years they prepared the way of the Lord. But when the great apostate came, he brought war with him, and the fields of Eden were soaked with the blood of brothers. The only emancipation he had to offer was death.
Shortly after 1 o'clock this afternoon, the scoundrel, believed now by many to be Vox Populi, began his terrible rampage.
I have a bad feeling about all these crows.
Full of wrath and bent on harm, the anarchist.
Alright, right now we don't have nearly enough money to buy anything useful from the vending machine. Also, I'm pretty much holding off on buying any vigor enhancements for pretty much the entire game. Like, I'll buy plenty of weapon enhancements, but I'm going to hold off on the vigor enhancements. Some of them are really good, but they're just really expensive, and sometimes they'll cost you half, if not all, of your money, and I just can't deal with that right now. Alright, so here's what I was talking about earlier when we first got our shield. This is the gear function for this game. Now, gear is similar to your gene tonics from the previous Bioshock games, and you have 4 categories for them. You have a hat, you have a shirt, you have trousers, and you have boots. So 4 different slots for your gear, and it's very similar to how the gene tonics worked in the first Bioshock, where you had 4 separate slots for them. So they all kind of fit into a certain category. It wasn't just like Bioshock 2, where they all could be equipped to any of the blank slots, and they didn't have any kind of differentiating categories. Now, the thing about all the gear drops in this game is they're all random. I'm going to let this audio diary, I'm sorry, this Vox phone play real quick.
Why do we worship 3 symbols in your memory? We worship the sword, so that we might avenge you. We worship the raven, so that we might cover the city with eyes. We worship the coffin, because it symbolizes the weight of our faith.
Ugh. Alright, let's take out the Zealot. We'll talk about the gear a little bit later. So the Zealot has this weird ability to teleport around, and he has a sword. He's pretty badass looking, actually. He runs around with a sword and a coffin on his back. And he has very powerful melee attacks, and about as much health, if not more, than the Fireman does. And the best way to deal with him with our limited firepower is with the Vigor Traps from the Devil's Kiss. Now, a lot of times when you if you try to throw the fireball at him, then you're going to be out of luck, because he's probably going to teleport away before you can actually make contact with him, and the same thing with a lot of slow-moving projectiles, and even just casting a regular Vigor on him even later in the game. Oh, burned him to death! Ha ha ha! And he dropped our 3rd Vigor!
That's a hell of a thing.
This one looks really cool. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it's the murder of crows! Instead of having a swarm of personalized killer attack beasts to attack your enemies, or a swarm of devouring rats, we now have a swarm of killer crows. And they are vicious and deadly. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, so the murder of crows, it's actually very good. And I didn't care for the insect swarm in previous Bioshock games really at all. And in the context, you know, of Dishonored with the Devouring Swarm, that was a very different type of ability, but I still kind of group it in there with the same thing. I've never died here before. That was really pathetic. I am so sorry. Introducing a new Vigor, and I go ahead and die. Yeah, the Murder of Crows, it doesn't deal a whole lot of damage, but the fact that it immobilizes enemies while they're distracted really is the best thing about it, because then it opens them up to your fire and takes the heat off you for a second, so it's very good. There's another piece of gear here. Oh, a burning halo. Okay, that's actually a pretty good one. There's a wrench down that looks suspiciously like the Bioshock wrench. Yeah, the Murder Crows really is good in conjunction with other Vigors, though. It's very good if you were to throw a fireball with Devil's Kiss and then cast the Murder of Crows. The crows will catch on fire and spread to other enemies. And it can be very abusive. I'll be using that Vigor combination very frequently. That's one of the great things about the Vigors as opposed to the Plasmids in the previous games, is the fact that a lot of them can be comboed together, and it makes for very impressive results. This house really here has nothing consequential in it, really. It's just got some extra money and whatnot, and a very gruesome decapitation I just did there. But it doesn't have any voxophones or anything. If I didn't say so before, voxophones and gear, as well as infusions, although this doesn't really count, will never be included in a loot drop from an enemy as something that you loot the corpse and you see it there. Like, you know how the audio diaries in the previous games, you can get it from the loot that you drop from an enemy. In this game, the voxophones and the gear will only ever be tangible objects in the environment, so you shouldn't have to be looking in trash cans and secret compartments and corpses to try to find voxophones. You'll see the actual voxophone itself device sitting in the environment in this game. It will never be an item that you pick up from something like that. I'm going to skip these guys and move on to the next area. We're almost to Monument Island, ladies and gentlemen.